I always give away too much. It's like I've got no sense of
Hey Lifer Tribe, welcome to another video, Living Life with your girl Stae Hall. And if you're new to the channel, welcome, 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 and thank you so much for joining us today. And since you're here, if you could please consider hitting that subscribe button and becoming a permanent part of this Lifer Tribe. So, y'all, I just needed to sit down and talk to y'all about the color purple experience. And yeah, it was more than just a movie to me. It was definitely an experience, and I needed to talk about it. It was so much to unpack. It was a very emotional experience for me, and I just wanted to talk to y'all about it. First of all, I want to talk about the people who I've seen on social media complaining about the fact that it's a musical, and someone even said Oprah done ruined the color purple. I don't see how, and even the fact that it's a musical, right? So at first when I saw that, I was a little like, a musical, but I've seen the Broadway play a couple of times, and I've seen the movie more times than I can count. So I wasn't completely thrown by it being a musical, because the play is indeed a musical, but I was just wondering how that would translate to film. It's been done many times before with different plays, and you know, most of them, in my opinion, have not been that great. I'm not a huge fan of musicals, but I do have some that I absolutely love. Like, musicals for me is definitely hit or miss. They're either really, really great or really, really bad. And I don't think that everyone really takes into account what movies we love so much that have been musicals. Like The Wiz, for instance, is a musical, but most people I know who have seen The Wiz love it, even if they're not true fans of a musical. So it's about how it's done, in my opinion. And my husband, who is not a fan of musicals at all, he absolutely loved it and was like, I didn't even think about it while we were watching it, the fact that it was a musical. It didn't seem like a musical at all, because it wasn't one of those where they're just talking and all of a sudden the conversation turns into a song. You know what I mean? It was like every song fit the scene. It transitioned seamlessly. And it was just no different than, I feel like, me living my life and doing things that I do. And sometimes I just start singing. You know what I'm saying? A certain song will be on your heart and you're just walking around the house singing. That is how it was for me. It did not seem, it wasn't this show tuney, you know, A Day at the Cabaret type of thing. It was, to me, a movie where the actors just sang the soundtrack, if that makes sense. So that's the first thing. But again, everyone is entitled to their own opinion, but the musical part of it, which I was afraid might take away from the drama and the story, it didn't at all. It fit. Everything fit. It was very, very well done. Being that I've seen the movie so many times, and the first time I saw the movie was when it first came out in the theaters. It was the first movie I ever went to that had an intermission. Like, I remember that as being a kid, and that was just a big thing. I'm like, what's going on? And my dad took my sister and I to see the movie. And oops, dropped my earring. Sorry, y'all. This hair just gets on my nerves. It's always sticking to me and I'm always having to move it. But my dad had taken my sister and I to see the movie, and it was the first movie where we ever like got up in the middle and went to the bathroom and got more snacks. So I just remember that, and I don't really remember what my feelings and thoughts about the story were because I was young. But I do know that I enjoyed it and wanted to see it again as I got older, and again, I've watched it so many times. I've seen the musical a couple of times, like I said, but something about the way this one was done, I believe, and also maybe just where I am in my life now, this just hit a little different, y'all. It was like I was seeing it for the first time, and I felt every bit of that movie. I was able to relate. The actors were unbelievable and just drew me in. And there were just things that I thought about this time around that I hadn't thought about before. And ways that I can relate to the movie and experiences in my life that I had never thought about before. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. And I'm not going to go in any particular order. If y'all have ever seen my videos before where I talk about movies and my thoughts on things, I'm not going to try to go in chronological order. And what I love about this is I'm not ruining the story for anybody, because most of us all know the story of The Color Purple. So the first thing that I want to talk about, and this is kind of at the end, but when Miss Celie opens her pants shop and Mr. comes to the pants shop after he has, been hit by the Miss Celie curse, and his crops burn and things aren't going right for him in his life, and I guess he's trying to get back right with God and get things back on the right track, he decides that he's going to come to the shop and buy a pair of pants from Miss Celie as a part of his good deed, because he's already gone, I guess, to immigration to try to get her kids here and her sister, but now he's going to come to Miss Celie's shop and get the pants. And to me, it was still very manipulative in a way, still very arrogant in a way, because it didn't come across as a sincere gesture. What I picked up on was the fact that he said he wanted to buy a pair of pants, but then he goes to the discount rack and says, well, let me just grab a pair of these pants that no one else wants and help your business out. I ain't like that. Because first of all, just because they're discounted and still hanging there doesn't mean nobody else wants them. Maybe I'm just ready to turn over product a little sooner. Sometimes things sit more than longer than others, but that doesn't mean nobody else wants them. And I don't need you to help my business out. And how much are you helping my business out by buying a discounted pair of pants, right? And so y'all might be looking at me like, Stae, why are you so mad? Why? Because there are things in my life that mirror that, where you get these offhanded compliments or these promises to help or offers to help that aren't really sincere. And it's like, I don't even want it. But the thing was, Miss Celie still appreciated, packaged the pants, and then even asked him, are you sure you're going to want to be seen in those? And it made me feel as if she still felt inferior to him, and she still felt like what she had done wasn't good enough, where I'm like, who cares what he wears and how he's going to look in public? And it just made me think about how, as Black women, so many of us, it's just hard for us to really walk in our worth and know our worth and be confident in who we are, and realize that we don't need to accept a handout. We don't need people who mean us no good helping us out, and we don't have to accept things from people who we don't want to accept them from. I mean, just the fact that she even let him in. And I understand, that a lot of the movie was about what a good person she was and how much faith she had in her relationship with God and the heart that she had. But at the same time, I'm like, y'all know me. It's all about live your life, LYFE, love yourself first explicitly. And that constant putting other people's feelings and other people's value of you before yourself, it bothers me. And so when I saw that, I'm just like, even till the end, I felt like he still had an opportunity to make a dig. Like, what do you mean the pants nobody else wants? What do you mean help me out? So y'all let me know. A lot of what I'm gonna say, y'all probably gonna be looking at me like, girl, you just angry. And I am about certain things, and I'm working through it. That's what therapy is for. But I just see things a little differently. I noticed during the movie, a lot of things that people laughed at that were supposed to be funny, they weren't funny to me. I'm like, that's not funny. Even when, Miss Celie jumps up at the table, and holds the knife and says, people are laughing, and when Miss Sophia is making her comments, but I'm like, that's not funny. That kind of stuff really happens in life. And when people finally find their voice and finally stand up for themselves, it's hard for me to laugh at that. It's just, to me, it's still a feeling of sadness. I'm glad that they found their voice, but I know for me, when I first found my voice and decided to stand up for myself, it wasn't funny. I wasn't happy because then I'm thinking like, why couldn't I have done this a long time ago? And I know we're not supposed to live in the woulda, shoulda, coulda, and I really don't. But I'm only human, and things just pop in your mind. It's like, dang, if I would have only had this courage a long time ago. And that was another thing that really hit me in the movie, though, that it is never too late. You know, you can spend a lot of time in a bad situation, accepting things that you don't deserve from people who don't deserve to be in your life or have access to your life. It could take you a while to really find your voice and know your purpose and believe in yourself, but it's never too late. I kind of roughly did the calculations, and it seems like Miss Seeley may have been 60 years old before she had any semblance of a normal life. And the good thing is, at least she found it. There are people who die and go to their grave and never have found that. So even though it's a fictitious story, I know that there are people who have lived same exact things. And so it's never too late. At least she did get to be happy at some point. She did get to have her children. But it was just hard for me to see that she did all that and still allowed this man. When she makes the comment in the store and puts her hand on his chest and said, maybe it's best us just be friends. Friends. Like, dang, I just couldn't. And I know that God commands us to forgive. However, forgiveness is not relational. Like, you don't have to have a relationship with someone to forgive them. And I just don't know if I could do that. No, I know I couldn't do that. It would definitely have to be like God, like in my face for me to be able to do that. And again, I just see that so many of us have found our voice and courage, but not quite. Like, I'm going to move on. I'm going to believe in myself a little bit more. I'm going to look at myself differently. I'm going to live for myself. But that person still has somewhat of a hold on you, because when they do show up and they do offer help and they just offer that little bit of kindness, we're so willing to accept just those crumbs when they don't deserve it. And forgiving someone, I can't say it enough, does not mean that you have to be in relationship with that person. And I know it's different for everybody, and I'm not saying that if you do that you're wrong. I just know that that's not where I am. Another thing that really hit me in the movie was the relationship with her sister and how they were able to carry on that bond without even having any communication for decades, and still caring about each other and loving each other enough to never give up on the fact that we may be reunited one day, not even knowing if each other was still alive, and not giving up, which is like the exact opposite of like the relationship with Mr. And I believe in that as well, that there are relationships that are worth fighting for. There are relationships that are worth waiting for. And I truly believe that if you believe it in your heart, that things can be better and things can be different and people can reunite, that it can happen. And that's what I definitely see as those, people always want to say that a soulmate is a significant other in a romantic relationship. But I believe, number one, that we can have more than one soulmate, and that soulmate does not necessarily have to be that romantic relationship, because her and her sister were definitely soulmates. They were connected by souls. They had not only the trauma bonds, but they had that real love that was able to endure the test of time, endure every trial and tribulation, and they never gave up on each other. And so when they saw each other, the connection was just all automatically there. And I love that. And that just, like I said, the opposite of the relationship with Mr., the relationship with her sister was genuine and pure, and it was real, and it was worth it. And it just, really drove home to me that there's certain relationships that you can't give up on. You have to hold out hope, because one day, if it's really what you desire and you feel in your heart, it'll happen. And so I love that, and I love that they had that to hold on to. Some of the other things that really got me emotional were the fact of the relationship and love that she had for Suge was a little bizarre to me. I definitely understand how she needed that, because Suge was the only person who I guess saw something in her other than her sister and was able to give her love that transcended how she looked or who she was, and she was able to tap into that place of her and give her that courage. However, Suge still left her. You know, when it was time for Suge to go, Suge still left her. Suge was still fooling with Albert, with Mr. So that was really bizarre to me as well, because it's, again, sometimes people get in such a beaten down place where they will accept even crumbs. Like, I was glad that at least she had Suge, because it did give her that little spark, that little sass that she needed. But at the same time, Suge was still more about Suge, because Suge never really stepped in. Suge never really tried to intervene. She did a little bit, but again, you're accepting those crumbs. And so that was a little bizarre. And you know, Suge had her own issues, and that's the thing. People have their own issues, their own problems, and that's why it's so important for us to do the work ourselves to become whole, because you can't depend on other people, because it's not necessarily their burden to bear. But it is something that I was like, dang, even with that, she did not get that unconditional, I'm down for you, let me get you out of here. It's like, no, I'm still flirting and fooling around with your husband. And, you know, I'm going to give you this little bit of advice. I'm going to help you a little bit. But when it's time for me to roll, I'm going to roll. Now, of course, at the end of the movie, she ends up going with Suge. But that first time Suge left, she was like, I'll be back. And you know this woman is being beat. And you know this woman is in an unsafe environment. And the part that really got me, and you still drinking and flirting and dancing around with the husband. Like, that was just bizarre to me. But it just, you know, again, just let me know that's when you don't have anything, when you don't have anyone, the crumbs that we will accept just to feel the least bit of love, just to feel the least bit of support, the least bit of belonging, we will accept those crumbs. Another part of the story that really hit home for me is something that I have never, ever discussed with you all or anyone, is just the fact that someone else took it upon themselves and felt that they had the right to take her children from her. And that is something that I've experienced and I'm still going through in a different way. Things can be the same yet very different, but I know that y'all see my middle son and my youngest son and my bonus children on the videos, but I have an older son who is in his early 30s, and there were people in my life who took him from me from the very beginning, and not physically took him from me, but took him from me mentally, where I had my son at 20 years old, and I guess in my mother's opinion, I wasn't ready to be a mom. And so it seemed like from the very beginning, it was her desire to be the mother for him and step in. And he grew up in the household with me for the first 5 years of his life and did not see me being treated as an adult, did not see me as a mother. It was more like an older sibling in the house, and that carried on throughout his life to where at one point it was like I didn't even exist. And when that part of the movie came for the first time ever, it just hit home for me that the message I want to give to anyone is, I don't care what your situation is. I don't care how much money you have or don't have, how much education you have or don't have. If you have a desire to raise your children and to be a mother to your children, then you do that. God will give you what you need. I wish, the big thing, I was 20 when I had my son. I think I already said that. So I wasn't a child. I was a grown woman. However, I was still in my parents' house. I just had a part-time job. I was trying to go to school. And the thing was, oh, you can't afford to take care of him. You know, you're going to be living in the projects. You're going to be on food stamps and raising him. But you know what? I wish I would have done that. I wish that I would have taken my son and gotten every bit of public assistance that I could get, every bit of Section 8, whatever, and just raised my own son. You know why? Because I know me. And I wouldn't have allowed myself to stay in that situation any longer than I needed to. I would have used my resources to my advantage, and I would have made a life for me and my son. But being young, being afraid, being controlled, already feeling embarrassed because here I am shaming my family, having a child at 20 years old out of wedlock. And when I say it now, it sounds crazy. You would have thought I was 12, 13 years old. I was 20 years old, a grown woman. But when you've been treated like a child your entire adult life and told what you can't do, what you're not going to do, a lot of times it's hard to fight that, and you just kind of do what you've always done because that's what you always do, and you're afraid. And now I see at 52, what was I afraid of? Like, what were they going to do? I was grown, but I just did what I was told to do, and it cost me my son. But to tie back to the relationship with Miss Seeley and Nettie, it's the same thing. I love my son. I know one day I will be back in relationship with my son because that is my heart's desire. That is my prayer. I still feel connected to my son. At a certain point, we had a close relationship. It's just the fact that when he was poisoned against me and told certain things, it changed his perspective. But it's all mind games. But I know one day, because of the connection that I feel, because of the longing that I feel, because of the prayers that I pray, I know that that relationship will be reconciled and we'll be back together. However, I also realized that I went through that for multiple reasons based on who I am today and the people that I help and the messages that I give. And after seeing that movie, sitting in that theater, I realized I give and I share, and that's what I do, and that's what I believe I've been called to do. But I need to be 100% transparent. And this is a part of my life that I've never shared before. And sitting in that theater, I realized it's time, because it hit me in a different way. Like I said, even though my son wasn't physically taken out of my arms at birth and given away, in a way he was, because there was someone who said, no, I can do better than you. I'm going to be in control. You're going to listen to me. He's going to listen to me. And it really destroyed the relationship that I have with my older son. And I realized in that moment watching that movie that I need to share this because there could be somebody else in a very similar situation. And I just want you to know that you can do it. If you think that you can do it and you have a desire to do it, you can do it. And situations are temporary. Who cares if you have to be on public assistance for a little while? Who cares if you have to be in Section 8 housing for a little while? That's okay. You will continue to do better and do more. And when that child is little, they ain't gonna know where they're living. They're not gonna care. All they're gonna know is they have a mother or father who loves them and cares for them. So don't let anybody tell you that you can't. Don't let anyone take your child from you. Don't let anyone take your mothering from you. You can do it. And I still to this day wish that I just would have taken my son and used whatever resources I could have had, because I know I would have done a good job. And then it got proven to me because I have two other sons that I took care of 100%, that have been with me since day one, that who did not have that much of that outside influence on them. And I did a great job. I did a great job. I love my sons and they love me. And I love my oldest son more than anything in the world. All of my sons mean the world to me. And that's why I know that relationship will come back around. And one day we will be reunited, just like Miss Seeley and Nettie. Yeah, that was tough. And I didn't know if I was going to get through that without crying, because I'm not a crier. But in the movie, y'all, I was crying. I was crying. But yeah, I just think they did an awesome job. I'm trying to think if there was anything else, any other key points that I really wanted to talk about. I think that was the most of it. The other thing that I wanted to talk about, though, was the strength of Miss Sophia and how she stood up for herself and how she did not allow herself to be disrespected. She tried to move on several times, and it was kind of like that tick, tick, boom. And so what I wanted to say about that is, it's tough. That's a tough line to walk. And depending on the situation, sometimes it is better just to bite the bullet and to walk away. And I just want you all to know that don't ever feel less than or like you are not confident or assertive if your choice is to walk away, because sometimes the repercussions just aren't worth it. Again, I know that that was a different day and time, but it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't worth it. But I know it's not always easy, because I've been in those situations as well where it's like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I going to defend myself? Am I going to speak up? Or am I just going to walk away? And it's just real important to take those moments of reflection, that woosah, that counting to 10, and make the best decision. Try to think of the worst case scenario. And in her case, look what that is. She sat in that jail cell for 6 years. And I know another day and time, but similar things happen in this day and time. And I just want us all to think about it before you react. Think about what the consequences are. And in this day and time, we do have other resources. Live to have your day in court, whatever it is. But just take that time to think, because that's something that I've struggled with, that I have finally overcome. But sometimes the best reaction is no reaction, because the most important thing is being able to be here for ourselves and the ones who we love. And it's just not worth it over words. Definitely not over words. And I know sometimes words hurt. Words can be tough, disrespectful, but it's just not worth your life. But yeah, y'all, I had to light a candle and pour a glass of wine and woosah. But I had to make sure I talked about this, because so many things in that movie hit home for me. And what I realized is, we can never let anybody take our voice. We can never let anybody take our opportunities away from us. We can't let anybody else dictate our journeys. We have to take control of our lives. We do not have to accept crumbs, because that's not true love anyway. And just know your worth. And if nobody else is loving you but you, that's fine. When Miss Seeley, that was the other thing. When she said, you know, that I may be ugly, whatever, but then when she turned around and said she was beautiful, that was me as well. I have shared my ugly duckling story with y'all. But I'm telling you, that moment, and for those of you who have had something similar, the similar experience, you know that moment when you look at yourself for the first time and realize, I am beautiful. I am beautiful, and no one else's standard of beauty means anything, because you know there are people who all of us think are beautiful and they still suffer from self-esteem. So it's all a mindset. But when you first are able to look at yourself and accept yourself just the way you are, everything else in life falls in line. So realize, it's not the love from other people that's going to get you to where you need to be mentally anyway. It's you. So no matter how much we accept the crumbs, or how much we just sit around longing and waiting for someone to accept us, or someone else to tell us we're worthy, someone else to tell us we're beautiful, nothing is going to change until you realize it for yourself. And I'm telling you from personal experience, when you first see yourself for who you really are, flaws and all, and realize that I am beautiful just that way, it is a total life game changer. Because for me, there were years and years and years where I didn't feel like I matched up as far as how I looked or how smart I was. And I was comparing myself to other people. I was compared to other people. I was told by the people who were supposed to love me the most that I didn't look as good as this one or that one. And I wasn't quite as cute as this one or that one. And that stuff was in my head. And that's what I was always trying to live up to. Not even realizing that I look the way I look because that's the way I'm supposed to look. And that is just fine. That is what we all need to work on. That is the place we need to get to, because you see, it wasn't until then with Miss Seeley where she was truly able to start to flourish and thrive. Because you see, I still feel like even at the very end, she wasn't all the way there, but that's a good start. You have to start with the man or the woman in the mirror and knowing that you are truly enough. So y'all, I hope that I said something that was impactful or insightful to some of you. My goal is just to help whoever I can. If it's only one person or if it's 1 million people, it doesn't matter to me as long as it's helped somebody. I share because I truly believe that my journey and the things that I've been through are not just about me. They are about somebody else out there who needs to hear that they are not alone. So y'all know the drill. I love you all to bits and pieces. I appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in. And always be kind and love one another, but never stop living your life. LYFE. Love yourself first explicitly. And I'll see y'all in the next one. And go see The Color Purple. It's good. Musical and all. It's good. It's more than good. It's great. It's phenomenal. I'll see y'all next time. Bye.
I always give away too much. It's like I've got no sense of touch.